Today, we're digging into something pretty wild, the constitutional blueprint that actually lets the Indian government redraw its own map. I mean, literally reshape its states. And it's all right there in Part I of the Constitution, which lays out the very definition of India.
So, how is that even possible? How can a government just decide to create a new state, or shrink an old one, or even just change its name? It sounds like this huge, almost unbelievable power, right? Well, the answer is packed into just a couple of really powerful articles right at the beginning of the Constitution.
Okay, so to really get how the map can be changed, we've got to start with how it's defined in the first place. And for that, we turn to Article 1. So, Article 1 calls India a union of states. Now, that wording? Totally deliberate. It's not a federation of states, which might sound like a bunch of separate entities coming together by agreement. Nope. Union sends a crystal clear message. India is one single, unbreakable nation. States can't just decide to leave. Secession is not an option.
And this territory of India is made up of three parts. You've got the states, obviously. Then you have the union territories, which are run by the central government. And here's the interesting bit, it also includes any territory that India might acquire down the road. They really thought ahead.
And this quote from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, one of the main architects of the Constitution, just nails it. He said the word union was used because the federation itself is indestructible. You can't break the country apart. But the states, well, that's a whole different story.
All right, so now we get to the really powerful part. This is where we see exactly how Parliament gets to be the nation's official mapmaker.
This whole authority really boils down to two key articles. Article 2 deals with adding new states from the outside. But Article 3, oh man, Article 3 is the real game changer. That's the one that gives Parliament the power to completely shuffle the deck of states inside India.
And we're talking about some serious power here. Parliament can literally create a new state out of an existing one. It can merge two states together. It can make a state bigger or smaller. It can redraw the boundary lines. It can even just change a state's name. It's basically total control over the country's internal geography.
So how does this actually happen? Well, a bill to change a state first gets sent by the president to that state's own legislature. The state gets a chance to give its opinion, have its say. But here's the kicker. That opinion, it's not binding at all. Parliament can listen to the state, say thanks for your thoughts, and then go ahead and do whatever it wants anyway.
So we know what parliaments can do, but the how is just as interesting. It's a really unique process, and it shows you just how flexible this whole system was meant to be. Think about this. To change most things in the Constitution, you need what's called a special majority in Parliament, which is a really high bar to clear. But to redraw the map of India, all you need is a simple majority. That's the same kind of vote you need for any regular old law. In fact, the Constitution explicitly says these kinds of changes aren't even considered amendments. It's a built-in shortcut that makes reorganizing states way, way easier. Which leads to the big question, why? Why set it up like this? Why give this central government so much power over the very existence of its states? The answer really gets to the core of how India sees itself as a nation. There were a few big goals behind this design. First and foremost, to make sure national unity was the absolute top priority. It also built in flexibility, so the government could create new states if it made sense for administration or to recognize different linguistic and cultural groups. We've seen this happen a bunch of times in India's history, right? That's how we got states like Telangana or Uttarakhand. At the end of the day, it's all about having a strong central government that can adapt the country's internal map when it needs to. So it all boils down to this one really powerful idea. India is an indestructible union of destructible states. Let that sink in. The union, the country itself, is permanent. It can't be broken. But the states, the individual pieces, they can be changed, redrawn, or even erased, all by the central government. Now, there's no doubt this flexibility has been a huge strength for India. It's allowed the country to evolve and adapt to all sorts of challenges over the decades. But it does leave us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? If this power is a strength for the nation as a whole, what are the potential risks when the very existence of a state rests in the hands of the central government?